Okay, let's take a look at classes in Java. A class can be thought of as a template or blueprint for objects. Java focuses on object-oriented programming, so pretty much all things in Java are objects. First, we're going to start with a classic example of a box. So let's go ahead and start by declaring a class box. Okay, so a box here, we're going to give it three variables, height, width, and depth. We're going to create some doubles for that. Okay, so here we have our simple box class. Okay, next we're going to need an entry point to our program. So we're going to create another class. We're just going to call it demo. Okay, since it's our entry point, we're going to go ahead and do our main method. So public static void main string array of arguments. Okay, now normally the classes we would separate into different files, but for this example we're going to use the same file, just so it could be visually seen. Okay, so now we're going to construct our first object. Okay, and the way we do that is we create a type box. We'll just call it box. And then we're going to use the new keyword here, and we're going to call box. Okay, so this here is signaling a default constructor for our class box. Java offers a default constructor when one isn't assigned or built by you as the class designer. It offers a default constructor that looks like this. It has no parameters, so it just builds it for you. So let's go ahead and access the width, height, and depth of our box object. And we can do that by using dot notation. So box dot, let's do width equals 5.5. Box dot height equals 6.7. And box dot depth equals 4.5. Okay, let's just give a little space here just so it's a little bit more clear. All right. Okay, so now we've assigned some values to the variables, the instance variables with height and depth. Okay. Next, what we're going to do is we're just simply print out a statement that gives the volume of the box. So we'll just multiply that. Let's go ahead and start that by calling in system.out.print line. Okay, the volume of this box is. Okay, and then we'll enclose this in parentheses and we'll call in box.width times box.height times box.depth. All right, let's not forget our semicolon here. Let's go ahead and run this and see what we get. All right. Okay, so here we could see the statement. The volume of this box is 165.825 and a bunch of zeros and 2. Okay, so our volume is 165.82. All right, let's go ahead and take a look here at what we're doing. All right, so we've created a new box. We use dot notation to access the instance variables and assign them some value. Then we just went printed it out. We did the math here. Okay, next we're going to look at creating our own constructor in box. We're going to create a parameterized constructor. So that way, instead of using dot notation, to assign variables. We'll do it all at once when we initialize our object. So let's go ahead and go back into our class box. Okay, right under here, we're going to go ahead and type in box. So box constructor. So box and the class name and the constructor are called the same. We're going to go ahead and just parentheses and our curly brackets here. Okay, this is what the default constructor looks like. It has no parameters and nothing's going on inside. We're going to change that. So we're working with doubles. So we're going to go ahead and pass these as parameters here. Okay, so we're going to pass in a width, a double height, and a double depth. Okay. An important keyword that we're going to use is the this keyword for this example here. This dot width allows us to notify that we're going to be using the instance variable width that belongs to the class box. So this is signaling that this current object's width, because we're using a naming convention in our parameter that is also called width, we can't tell which width we're talking about, so we need to specify that with this. This instance variable that belongs to class box will be assigned the width that's passed in our parameter. So this width here refers to the one being passed in the parameter. And this width is the instance variable for the box class. Okay, let's do that for the rest. Okay. Okay, now that we've created our parameterized constructor, we gotta go back down here to our main method and take a look. Here we're getting an error now. The reason for that is now we are trying to access the default constructor that is no longer available because we've created a parameterized constructor. So now we must pass in some parameters, and they must be 3 and they must be double. Okay, our width, height, and depth. So we have those declared down here. So let's go ahead and add these here in our constructor. Okay, so width, height, and depth. All right. Now that we've passed these through here, we no longer need this chunk of code here. So let's go ahead and delete that. All right. Let's go ahead and print, and it should be the same. All right. There we go. So it's the same here. 165.82.5. Okay. So now instead of using the dot notation, we're just doing it at once as we create the object, and we're passing in the parameters. Because we specified a constructor, we now have to pass in parameters. Okay. Our next step here, we see that we're printing out the volume of the box, and we're using the dot notation to access those variables. Instead, now we're going to create a method in our class box that does that work for us. Instead of creating it outside the class, we're going to use a method here. So right after our constructor, we're going to, first we need a return type. So we're going to be returning a double. Okay, we're going to call that volume. All right. And then in here, we're going to return, okay, we're going to be returning the this dot width. Again, that we are using the keyword this to refer to the current object that's calling this method. And then this dot height and times this dot depth. Okay, so we get our volume here. All right, that should return a double. And now let's go ahead and erase this line of code here. And then we're gonna use our object, which is box. We've already declared that here on line 22. Let's go ahead and call that, and then we're gonna call the construct method here volume. Okay, because we've already passed these values in, this box has these instant variables have a value assigned to them. So we're just going to do that. Let's go ahead and run. All right, and there you can see that it's printed out. All right, so that's a quick look at the classes in Java. So let's take a look again. So we have a class blocks. We have instant variables here, doubles with height and depth. We have a parameterized constructor that passes 3 parameters. We're using the this keyword to differentiate which width we're talking about, which height we're talking about, which depth we're talking about. So this refers to the current object, okay, instance variable. And this width here is the parameter one that's being passed in and assigned to that. Okay, then we have a method here that returns a double called volume, and that does the calculation for us. And okay, and then down here in our demo class, we have our main method, and we are constructing a box type called box with the new keyword. We're calling in the parameterized constructor, and we're passing in some values. And then for our print statement, we are just calling the box volume method to get this calculation for us. All right.